Welcome back, Devils fans. It is your host, Ace, here on Running with the Devils, where we are talking New Jersey Devils hockey all year long. Please hit that subscribe button, smash the like, share it with a friend. Thank you very much. And our beloved New Jersey Devils had an absolute atrocious effort at the Rock last night. I'm not going to try to sugarcoat it. Coming off a bad loss to the Washington Capitals, the New Jersey Devils back in action against the Tampa Bay Lightning and drop an 8-5 decision. And anytime you give up 8 goals in an NHL hockey game, it is obviously not a recipe for a win. And tonight the Devils lose a very ugly one. A lot to get to here, but we'll start off at 11:02 of the first period. Jack Hughes comes in on a breakaway, does a little razzle-dazzle, drops the goalie. Beautiful shot to finish it off. Jack gets his second of the year, assisted by Bratt and Palat, giving the Devils the 1-0 lead, and I was feeling good. I was in the building at the Rock, feeling good, hoping to see our boys bounce back from that terrible game the other night. Jack gets one in the first period, and I'm like, all right, this is hopefully the start of a beautiful outing for the boys here. But shortly after, at 14:09, Braden Point on the power play ties it up at 1. And the Lightning just have so many skilled guys. I mean, my God, you have Point and Gensel and Kucherov and Hedman. They just have a lot of talented guys. And obviously these guys have won before. This was not going to be an easy game. Point ties it up on the power play. First period ends tied 1-1. And I was like, all right, we got us a game. It's going to be a close game. I thought it would be a close game heading into it. At 51 seconds of the second period, Timo, beautiful goal assisted from Jack Hughes, giving the Devils the 2-1 lead, and hope was restored. I was like, all right, let's just get the next one, take this 3-1 lead, and just kind of grind out a victory here. The Timo goal was pretty much the beginning of the end. A little while later in the second period, Jesper Bratt gets absolutely rocked behind the net by Cernak. Very little response. It was just like Palat shoving him a little bit, and in a spot there, it was a clean hit. Cernak absolutely lit Bratt up, destroyed him with a clean hit. It was a fair hit, but even though it was clean, you guys know how it goes in this game, and someone's got to make him respond. I would have liked to see an immediate melee of some kind, or someone immediately get after Cernak. It wasn't in the cards, and it was kind of one of those things where we're getting PTSD of our guys getting assaulted last year and no one really doing anything. It was very reminiscent of that, and I was very upset that there wasn't an immediate response. Credit to Nate Bastian. I think a little bit later on in the period, he did try to fight him, and he would not oblige. But, Bratt takes that hit. He gets up. Play continues, and then shortly after that big hit, whether it had something to do with it or not, Tampa Bay just poured it on us. At 7:34, Hedman ties the game at 2. And then literally one of the quickest natural hat tricks I've ever seen. Brandon Hagel scores at 9:27 to give the Lightning the 3-2 lead. Then he scores at 13:01 to give them the 4-2 lead. Then he scores again at 15:53. Getting a natural hattie in a little over 6 minutes, about 6.5 minutes, to score 3 goals. And for those that don't know, a natural hat trick is when one player scores 3 goals in a row with no one else scoring. That's a natural hat trick. And so he did just that, scores 3 goals in a row, no one else scoring in the game in between his goals. And he has a natural hat trick in about 6.5 minutes. And now the building is stunned. Devils down 5-2. And at that point, I had a knot in my stomach. I felt nauseous being there at the game. It's not good to see these live. I mean, sitting at home watching this would suck too, but being there adds an extra layer of depression for me on it. And then about a minute and a half later at 17:28, Hedman scores again, making it 6-2 Tampa Bay. Second period ends, Devils down 6-2. And at this point, I'm not going to lie, tons of people are leaving. And I get it. Some people have kids and babysitters and work in the morning and other commitments and sometimes far commutes home, and I get all of it. I've never left a hockey game in my life after the second period, but I did leave this one early. I'll get to that in a little bit. But Devils down 6-2 after 2. People start filing out en masse. And I was like, well, let's hope for another miraculous. This would be a super miraculous one, down 4 goals. But let's see if the boys could claw back. And they have shown some resilience and fight in previous games. Third period starts up, and at 2:56, Nate Bastian scores to cut the lead to 6-3. And now the building starts to come alive a little bit. A little bit. It was a complete dead zone. Bastian scores. The building wakes up a little bit. Devils go on the power play a few minutes later. and Timo gets his second of the game, fourth of the season, assisted by Tatar and Nemitz. And now it's 6-4. Now the building is electric because we now have 14 and a half minutes left in the game, and now we're only down by 2. The building is come back to life. Everyone's thinking we're going to see something really special here. And shortly after the Timo goal, a complete tragic call on Dawson Mercer, one of the worst penalty calls I've ever seen. He gets trucked into the goalie. There's nowhere for him to go. He gets called for the penalty. The boo birds come out. The arena is going absolutely bonkers. It was an absolutely atrocious call, and I wish at some point maybe with technology now and all these reviews and things, I think on plays like that, you have to be able to review it because it was totally BS. I don't like the review of the offsides because we've seen tons of goals get wiped off the board across the league over the past couple of years when it's like a hair offside and it really didn't affect the play at all. With those plays, I think if the ref can't catch it in the moment, then it really wasn't an egregious offsides, and I think it should count. A lot of people are, think that if it's offsides, then it should be reviewed and it should come off the board. I'm just, I don't like it. If it's a hair offside, and in real time the ref couldn't tell, most of the time it had no real effect on the play, and it sucks. But it is what it is. That's a whole separate topic. But if you're able to review those, I think tragic penalty calls like this should be able to be reviewed. This one was totally BS. The arena goes crazy. Stole the momentum right out from under us. Devils had to cut the lead to 2. Mercer gets this terrible penalty, and the Lightning score immediately on the power play, all while there should have been a penalty call on them. Kovacevic gets rocked in the face, I believe. I have to watch the replay from the other angle. I was in the arena, and it was wild, but it looked like basically right off the face-off, someone either high-sticked or Kovacevic gets hits in the face. Should have been a penalty right before they score, and it should have basically negated their power play, and then hopefully the Devils could have clawed back somehow. And I'm not blaming the refs for this, for the Devils' loss. They played absolutely terrible and didn't deserve to win. But whenever a team's trying to mount a comeback and their efforts are thwarted by an absolutely tragically bad penalty call, it sucks. And so that was it, basically. That was the turning point of the game. Obviously, again, the Devils played terrible, but they cut the lead to 6-4. And then Tampa gets handed a bogus power play, and then they missed the call on Kovacevic there. Kovacevic was hit, whatever happened. There should have been a penalty on the Lightning. They didn't catch that. They score, and that was basically the dagger. Lightning go up 7-4. I'm surprised people didn't start throwing stuff on the ice. I was waiting for it. I don't condone stuff like that, but I understand in all different types of sports in the heat of the moment, situations like this, you do see it. I'm glad it didn't happen, but I thought it was going to happen. Gensel on the power play gives them the 7-4 lead. And it was just a depressing night. And then at 9:19, Moser fires one in. Allen goes behind the net to get the dump in, and it hits a crazy chink in the glass or whatever and shoots right on net and goes in. One of the flukiest goals. Stuff like that. When it rains, it pours. Nobody could replicate that if they gave you $1,000 and let you try to fire it in to where it's going to just go around the glass and then take this weird, change of direction right on the net. You couldn't do it if you wanted to with $1,000, but that was the type of night it was for the Devils. And that goes into the empty net. Allen, I thought, was going to break his stick, but he was just shell-shocked. That gives Tampa the 8-4 lead, and at that point, I gave it another couple minutes, and I left with about 7 minutes to play or so, somewhere around there. It was terrible. It was just depressing to be at this game. And then on the power play at 12:45, Nason scores one from Jack, picking up his 3rd point of the game, and that's how it ends. Devils lose 8-5. We get to the game stats real quick. Tampa Bay with 37 shots on goal. Way too many shots to allow. Way too many. Devils with 35 shots on goal. Faceoffs very even. Tampa Bay with 49.3. Devils with 50.7. The penalty kill tonight, not there. Tampa's lethal power play goes 2 for 2. 2 for 2 for the Lightning on the power play, and the Devils power play 2 for 3. It's encouraging to see the power play get clicking, but again, when you give up 8 goals, it doesn't matter what your power play does. Lightning with 13 hits. Devils with 23 hits. Lightning with 20 block shots, Devils with 9 block shots. Lightning with 9 giveaways, Devils with 13 giveaways. Lightning with 4 takeaways, and the Devils with 5 takeaways. Completely tragic. There's nothing really, there's nothing more to say, guys. It was a terrible game. I had wished we saw a response on that Cernak hit. That was very disappointing to me, aside from the game being absolutely terrible. But after the Devils were down, going into the third, they seem to find another gear, and it's unfortunate that it only happens when we're chasing and down big. If they could come out with that intensity from the opening faceoff, I think we could see a much better Devils team overall. And again, I still think this team is going to be very good. This was only Game 9 under Sheldon Keefe with a ton of new players. We are still without Luke Hughes and Brett Pesce. That should hopefully help the defense solidify a little bit. But it was just disappointing to see. I'm also curious. I thought it was odd to start Jake Allen, being that we have back-to-backs Thursday in Detroit and Friday at home against the Islanders. We're obviously going to see Jake Allen in one of those. So I'm wondering why, heading into this game, that Keefe and the coaching staff thought that Jake Allen should get 2 of the next 3 starts. I think it's a little bit of a head-scratcher. But for whatever reason, they decided to do it. I thought we were definitely going to see Markstrom tonight. And, maybe Allen in the first game on Thursday at Detroit, and then see Markstrom again Friday at home against the Islanders. But for whatever reason, they go with Allen, and not to blame the game on him. Obviously, he was hung out to dry. There was no goalie on the planet that was winning this game for the Devils tonight, no matter who was in the net. But on a side note, I just thought that was a little bit strange, because we're going to see him again probably on Friday. I would imagine now Markstrom will play Thursday in Detroit, and Allen will be back in there at home Friday against the Islanders. But yeah, if this team could just play with that urgency and consistently play like that when we were down, they could play like that from the opening faceoff and give us a 60-minute effort like that, I think the results will be a lot different. But for whatever reason, they seem to find that extra gear when we're already down, and I can't put a finger on why that is. I'm also hoping, because of the whole thing with Bratt, and Sheldon Keefe tried to write it off in the post-game press conference. He said he didn't think it really had anything to do with it, and it's hard to say, right? It could be a coincidence, but to his point, a guy throwing a big hit like that doesn't lead to all the breakdowns necessarily and all the things that happened for the Devils that were just tragedies that led to Tampa just scoring at will. But it is something to take into consideration where, maybe that did drive them and give them a little momentum. I have to think it gave them at least a little bit. Bratt got absolutely destroyed behind the net. We had no response. I'm not going to blame the game on that either. The Devils just played so poorly for huge stretches, and Tampa took it to us. They have great players that could finish. They're a championship organization. They have guys that have won, that have been in these battles and big games before, and they capitalize on our mistakes, and we made plenty of them. But I am hoping to see Curtis McDermott play a game ASAP. Whether it's, a hit, a fight, whatever it is, maybe his presence. I just want to see McDermott play a game just to shake things up a little bit. I'm hoping we see that soon. I had thought we would see him, at some point already. Obviously, they're probably reserving him for some maybe heavyweight matchups with like the Flyers and Rangers and maybe a couple other teams. But I would like to see him now. I think now is the time. Throw him out there. Let's just see if he could, bring some of that infectious energy to the team just to shake it up a little bit, because tonight was depressing. And for a fact, if Curtis McDermott was in the lineup, Cernak would have had to answer the bell at some point. And it just wasn't there tonight. And it did remind me of, last year's team when we'd get beat up and nothing would happen. It just wasn't a good night, obviously. I guess if we're looking for any sort of bright spots, it's hard to find a bright spot in a game where you give up an 8-piece. Jack heating up a little bit. Jack with a goal and 2 assists, a 3-point night for Jack. Timo had 2 goals. So we're starting to see that top 6 come alive a little bit. And then another somewhat bright spot would be, depth scoring continues to produce. Bastian and Nason both with goals. Love to see the depth scoring. Obviously, we're going to have to rely on that for some nights when the top 6 isn't getting it going. Going into the playoffs, you need to have scoring up and down the lineup, and we saw a little bit of that tonight. But unfortunately, it was all during a game where we gave up 8 goals, and so that's completely unacceptable. You're not going to win games in this league giving up 8 goals. It's just a disgusting display. And a lot of people, I think, wanted Jake Allen to be pulled after the second period, and Sheldon Keefe was asked about that as well in the post-game press conference, and he said that tonight was Markey's night and that you do not put in your number 1 goalie cold on his night off, which I don't know how I feel about that. I think as a philosophy, that's a little bizarre. Like, if a guy's getting lit up, granted you wanted to give your starter the night off, but there's been plenty of nights where backup goalies got shelled and the starter, his night off wasn't a full night and he had to get thrust into action. I do think, though, that no matter what, even if Markstrom did start the third, the game was done. We were losing this game no matter what. And so I could see it from that standpoint. But the way Keefe explained it, I thought was a little odd. But, that's his prerogative. It's his hockey club. And I'm not going to make a big stink about it either way because, like I said, no matter what happened, if he pulled him or not, we were losing this game. Somehow, in the midst of giving up 8 goals tonight, Johnny Kovacevic managed to be a +2. I mean, what a story this guy has been, right? I've talked about him and pumped his tires for weeks now. I mean, Fitzy picks him up for a 4th rounder, and he's just fitting beautifully here. He's going to have to stay in the lineup for sure. Big body, physicality. Yeah, I don't know, guys. It's just one of those depressing nights. I don't have anything to say other than, shout out to everyone that came by the post-game live just to kind of talk about the game and BS. A lot of negativity in the post-game live tonight in the chat. I'm not going to lie. I knew there was going to be some of the doomsday people in there, but there's an awful lot of them, and it was just a lot of negativity constantly throughout the whole live. I was a little taken back by it. I expected some of it, but there was an overwhelming amount of it. And the only thing I could say in response to that is that it's Game 9, guys. I can't be that outraged after Game 9. This was a disgusting outing, hands down. I was there. I paid money to go. I allotted my time to go to this arena and watch this pathetic performance, and it sucked. But in the reality of the situation it is the 9th game with a new head coach and a ton of new players. Rome wasn't built in a day. And this hockey club's not going to do a complete 360 from the stinker that we were last year overnight, and it takes time. And unfortunately, it's not as quick as a lot of people had hoped, or I had hoped as well. But I never thought that we were going to be a juggernaut from day one, and especially because we're missing Brett Pesce and Luke Hughes. I mean, those are pretty sizable players to not have been in the lineup so far at all this season. And so for all these people to come out in the live and be super negative, I have to say, you guys are ridiculous. Everybody needs to calm down. It's the 9th game of the season. I've never seen, maybe it's just, I think it's sports fans in general, but sometimes I question, like, are Devils fans as a whole one of the worst fan bases in sports? Sometimes I question it. But I get the pain. There's a lot of people who've been longtime fans, either, a lot of people kind of jumped on the Devils bandwagon on the 2012 playoff run where they went to the Cup and lost to the Kings. And, they haven't seen really anything since then in 12 years. Then there's the other longtime fans like myself that have lived through the dynasty years when we won the Cups and we were making deep playoff runs. And then there's the OG fans that are even before my time that were there when they sucked in the beginning and then lived through the dynasty, and now they've been through this last kind of dozen years of misfortune. But the reality is, it's Game 9. How can you be this outraged this early? And they're like, oh, we suck, we lose to the good teams. Like, it's just, to me, total overreaction. I'm not going to lie, I'm a little concerned, but I think these things are going to get fixed. I'm a little concerned, but I'm not on the ledge. These people are nuts. And if you're one of them, I tell you, it's Game 9. Give it some time. And then a lot of people in live are like, oh, Ace, well, when will you be concerned, or when will you kind of judge what's going on? And I'm like, well, I'm sitting here talking about it game by game, hoping for the best. But the reality is, why doesn't everyone chill out, maybe take some pharmaceutical drugs that you should be prescribed by your physician, and let's see how this team looks at Thanksgiving. The Devils would have played 25 games leading up to Thanksgiving. I think that's a great benchmark, a good barometer of the true outlook of what this Devils team can be heading into the rest of the season. 25 games is a little bit shy of a third of the season. So again, Thanksgiving is the first real benchmark for me. Almost 1/3 of the way through the season. And let's see where they are then. And I believe we will firmly be in a playoff spot. And I firmly believe we're not going to see games like we saw tonight too often. And they're hopefully going to be an outlier, not a regular occurrence. I think a lot of people are maybe extra scarred because this game followed up a pretty ugly game against Washington the other night. And so now they've seen 2 in a row, and, they're bringing out the pitchforks. Game 9, I could never get that amped up about it. Again, the game absolutely sucked. The Devils played like trash, but I believe it gets fixed, and I believe Luke Hughes and Brett Pesce are going to help right the ship. But again, new coach, tons of new players. It takes time. Rome was not built in a day, guys. It really wasn't built in a day. You got to give it some time. But aside from that, there's not much more to say. Let me know what you thought about the game in the comments, anything I said. Keep your eyes peeled, though, because at the game last night, your boy Ace did his first Devils-related food review. There's been a lot of chatter everywhere about this Taylor ham, egg, and cheese sandwich at The Rock. And yes, it is Taylor ham, egg, and cheese, not pork roll. That's a topic for another day. But I had to go to The Rock and try this Taylor ham, egg, and cheese. I will be putting the review out probably, I don't know, the next couple days. So keep your eyes peeled for that, because this has been like the hot topic everywhere. The Taylor ham, egg, and cheese at the Rock. So I had to see for myself. But anything, everything, New Jersey Devils, throw it out there in the comments. I also have the Goalie Mask Vault Part 2 video coming up for next Museum Monday. My buddy Jordan has all those crazy Devils goalie masks from over the years, so we do Part 2. Be coming out on Monday. Look out for that. But overall, terrible night from the Rock. Our boys get crushed 8-5. It is what it is. Jack Hughes with a 3-point game. Timo with 2 goals. And, hopefully they look much better Thursday in Detroit. Hopefully they come out on fire in Detroit, win that game, and then we win Friday at home against the Islanders, and maybe some of the naysayers and doomsday people will be back on board. But I tell all of you negative people, calm down. This team will be good. And then they're saying, the Fitzgerald just slapped anything together, and I hated these moves. Yeah, and someone else pointed out in the chat, I think people are just trying to be right. I don't even know what it is. Like, how do you call yourself a Devils fan? Listen, towards the end of last season, we were losing games we needed to win to squeak into the playoffs. I was livid and came on here and went nuts. And I think maybe some people are looking for me to do that after Game 9. I'm not that guy. I will get to that point at some point. If we're trying to squeak into the playoffs in March and April and we're losing terrible games, then I get more animated, because that's when it really matters. But right now in Game 9, it sucks that we lost this way tonight. But in the end, it's still super early. These are not make or break games, guys. They're just not. But a lot of negativity. Hope everyone calms down. This team will be okay. A lot of you people are completely nuts. All right, that's it. Anything, everything Devils hockey, throw it out there in the comments. Thank you for watching. I love you all. I'll be back soon. Like, comment, subscribe, and all that jazz. Until next time, friends, let's go